Hello guys, how you doing? My name is Stephen Meggs. I'm going to be your instructor, and this is an introduction video that is kind of like the same thing that would happen if you were in a face-to-face class, and on the first day the instructor was just telling you something about the course and maybe going over the syllabus and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we're doing here, just on a video. Anyway, there are two things that hopefully you have downloaded or printed or whatever. If not, just stop the video and go get them first, because we're going to be going through these documents, so you need to have them to look at somehow. And the first one is just the welcome letter or introduction letter or whatever, and the other is the syllabus itself. And you'll have links to that in that first module on the page there. That's where you found this video, so you've got to already be there, right? First of all, let's just talk about this introduction letter here before we go to the syllabus, because this is stuff that some of it's in the syllabus, but there's stuff here that's not in the syllabus that would just, maybe it would seem superfluous to a syllabus, but it's stuff that I think is important that you ought to know, and I want to talk more about. So first off, a lot of us are doing an online kind of thing for the first time, or maybe for the first time in the spring semester, in the middle of the semester, you were forced to change from a face-to-face to an online class. And if that's the case, then you probably already know some of the struggles for people that prefer face-to-face classes. Now, if you're someone who does online classes all the time, maybe you're used to something less like a face-to-face class. This is going to be like a strange combination of both, because even though it's an online course, what I do is I teach. I speak. And so for me to just make a website with a bunch of stuff to read and stuff, it's just kind of like, that's just not the way I do it. So if you would like to sit in a class and listen to like a lecture, twice a week for 75 minutes each, that's basically what you're going to do here. You're just going to be watching me on a screen and stuff. But there are advantages to that. First off, you can do it whenever you want to. You don't have to meet in the class at a regular time. And secondly, you can review things if you want to. If you feel like you didn't get something, you can back it up and listen to it again. Or, on the other hand, if you feel like I got this, just move on. Because sometimes I have to say things a couple times, make sure everybody gets them. So if you're like really quick, you might here's another thing you can do. You can actually speed up the videos too, and these are going to be YouTube videos. The links will all be in the course itself, in the Canvas modules, but the links will go to videos on YouTube. And if you're familiar with YouTube, there's a little gear control. You can click on the bottom right hand of the screen, and you can tell it to go faster. And I think your options are like 1.25, 1.5, 1.75, and 2, which is literally 2 times faster. And 2 times faster is really nice if you're listening to someone like Barack Obama, who talks really slowly, just a group of words at one time, with lots of pauses between them. If someone's talking like that, you might want to speed it up to like twice as fast. For me, you can do that if you want, but sometimes I'm talking kind of quickly anyway. So I'd say, try like 1.5 times. And see if that works for you. If, again, you're one of those that's kind of like wishing things would go faster. There's always a few. God bless you, smart, very, very quickly comprehending people. Okay, so this is going to be a lot like being in a class, because it's going to be like video teaching and stuff. So if you wanted all of your online class to be like reading, I'm sorry. However, there is reading. You're going to have outlines for all of these videos that you can be following along with, and they don't tell you everything. They're just an outline of the things I'm talking about. So you can make like some notes and stuff, maybe right next to, where they're at in the outline and stuff, if you write small. A lot of students do it that way. And so it just makes it easier to take notes, because you don't have to write down everything that you see on the screen. And Another thing, too, is if you understand key concepts, you don't have to struggle so much to think about all the minutia. Oh my God, now what was that question? And if he asked this, what's the answer to this? And if you look at this course like that, it won't work. You just can't memorize questions and answers. These are like deeper things that we're going to think about. And they're the kind of things that, first of all, you can look at from many, many different perspectives. And certainly in all the different world religions, there are different perspectives, but there's a lot that's very, very similar. So the first thing is, these are going to be sometimes things you've not thought about before. On many levels. I mean, just what it's like to be in another culture and think like someone growing up there, or even some of these deeper questions about ultimate concerns and the meaning of life and all kinds of great things that certainly involve religion. You're going to be thinking about a lot of things that you haven't thought about before. So it is really important to understand concepts. And in some cases, it's almost better to know the questions than to know the answers. And the reason is because these questions are what make all religions the same. You know, people are looking for the same kind of psychological, sociological needs, and they're pondering the same kind of thoughts about some, you know, higher reality or truth, or, you know, connecting with it, or being out of harmony with it, or needing some kind of major transformation in their life, or just trying to figure out what life's all about. I mean, who am I? What am I supposed to do? You know, we're all trying to construct meaning and purpose in our lives. And so all of these are important things. But while we have this in common, people, well, even with different personalities or different demographics in our own country, but certainly in other countries, other cultures, other religions, and as you go back in time, obviously the differences are even greater in the way these humans are looking at the same kinds of ultimate concerns. So we're going to learn to see them from many, many different perspectives, both socio-historically and culturally, and in regards to different religious traditions and so on. And so if you understand what it's like to see something a particular way, that means you understand the concept. Okay, you don't have to agree. It's not about right or wrong. There's so many different right answers that work for the people they work for. And we'll talk more about that. In the first video, The Academic Study of Religion, I talk about that a lot. But anyway, as we're looking at these same issues, we're going to see them from many different perspectives. You might say through the eyes of many different kinds of people that are very, very different from you. And so on some level, this is like a brand new thing to think about. And while everybody's asking the same questions, maybe framed differently, they're coming up with different answers sometimes. And that's why I say sometimes it's better to know the question than the answer, because the question itself is going to make you think about all the possible ways the question could be answered. And after this class, I hope that all these different perspectives go with you. And since you're used to, looking at different perspectives when it's appropriate in different situations, you'll continue learning new ones. And all of these new perspectives, they make you wiser. They just, I don't know, they make you more successful in so many ways. As a human being alive in human society and culture. Sounds like a philosophy course, doesn't it? Well, yes. As a matter of fact, it does. Because Intro to Philosophy, if you've taken it, it's all about concepts. It's all about thinking about things in different ways. And so, you're not just learning like names and dates and the right answer to the right question. You're learning to kind of adopt a perspective that involves a number of different things you have to be familiar with. And so instead of looking at it like you're, trying to make a list of all these things you have to remember and stuff, and if you like lists, that's fine. But my point is the most important thing is to kind of try to live through that person in that other culture, in that other kind of society or religion or century or continent or whatever that we're looking at. You're going to have to see through things through their eyes. And so if you understand a concept, if you can see it from this particular point of view, I can ask you 10 or 20 questions about it, and you'll answer them all just fine because you understand the concept. It's kind of like if you know someone really well, and I ask you like 2 or 3 questions about your friend. You don't have to practice. I mean, if they're simple questions, that's the kind of stuff you're going to know about anybody that you're close to. And so you don't have to memorize the answers or, you just know it because you're familiar with the situation. And so that's the main thing you're trying to accomplish. So you need to kind of lock in and really think about what it's like to be in these different situations and cultures. For a while, you're kind of pretending that you're not you. That makes sense? Because, if you want to see something from another person's point of view, the first thing you have to do is stop being you temporarily. Now, you don't really stop being you. But my point is, you set aside all those things that define you, all the answers you've come to in your life, all the value judgments you've come to in your life. Just set them aside. We call it bracketing. Talk about that. Just set them aside. Doesn't do any damage to them, by the way. You pick them right up when you're done, and everything's fine and everything's the same. But temporarily, you just set them aside, and then it's like you're pretending. You're saying, okay, what would it be like? You're imagining. What would it be like to, be this person in this time? And you think about all the things that you've learned about the context, and you try to imagine yourself as that kind of person. And what happens is you learn what it's like to be that kind of person, to think that way, to believe that way, whatever, to find meaning and purpose that way. And then you go back to being yourself, and you see, wow, there are just different perspectives. And all of the more perspectives you get, the more your own perspective is, I don't want to say marginalized, but it's just not as important as you think it is. There's so many different ways of looking at things that if you think that your way of looking at them is the only right way to look at them, you're going to have a hard life. Everybody's either going to be, a member of your closest community, or they're in some way going to be a potential enemy. And it sucks to look at life that way. So I hope after this class you don't. I'm not trying to change what anybody believes, but just, be a little bit humble. There are things that work for like billions of other people that are very different than you. So obviously you are not the standard for sanity for the human race. Obviously your religious beliefs are not the standard for everybody else on earth, where you can judge everybody else on earth just by how far their beliefs differ from yours. What kind of ignorance and arrogance is that? And so hopefully that doesn't apply to any of you, but if it does, we're going to set you free from that too. So there's good reasons to get involved. If you're just trying to memorize questions and answers, you'll probably have a difficult time, because I'm not going to ask you always the exact same question. It will be about the same topic, but it might be a different question. And also, if it's multiple choice, it might have a different battery of answers. So if you understand the concepts, that's not going to bother you a bit. But if you're memorizing questions and answers, that's going to frustrate you deeply. This is not the kind of course you can learn about that way. You have to think it. You have to feel it. You have to live it. You have to experience what it's like to be someone else. That's what it takes to be successful. So anyway, that's kind of just a brief introduction. I'm going to go over the welcome letter now and talk about some things on the letter that are important, okay? Well, introduction here is kind of what I've already done, just talking about the course, but there are ways it might benefit different people. Some people, it might have something to do with a personal faith quest or something. For others, it might be a requirement for a job, or maybe some are looking forward to a future career and thinking that it will empower you or enable you for that. For some, you're planning on traveling internationally, or for some of you, maybe you've developed relationships or want to develop relationships with people from other countries, cultures, and religions. So there's many different reasons someone might decide to take this class. I should say many different benefits that the class can offer, that different benefits may have been considered by different people. Now, if you're someone who just took the course because it was convenient on your schedule and you haven't thought about how it can be beneficial, don't worry, that's fine. Just because you haven't thought about the fact it's going to be beneficial, it's still going to be beneficial. So in many different ways, as you will see. And by the way, you don't have to be a religious person for it to be beneficial, okay, on a couple levels. What we just talked about, being able to see from other perspectives, how that brings wisdom. But even from a, kind of a non-religious, religious way of looking at it, if you will, all of us have some kind of religion or core set of values or something that our life kind of revolves around. Not making any value judgments about what's right or what's wrong. And the point is that a lot of the things that you'll learn in these different religions, whether it's Hinduism or Buddhism or Judaism or whatever, there are some really, really deep truths, important, practical pieces of advice that you can apply to your life that will actually increase the quality of your life, make you more successful in some of the ways that we've mentioned before. If you've had some reason to take the class, in the first essay, which I'm not going to talk about here, but you can read about it on the website, and maybe I'll mention something at the end of the video or something. But you're going to talk a lot about the first 2 weeks of class. You're just speculating based on what you've learned the first 2 weeks of class, how the class might be of benefit, in your future life. So even if you weren't thinking about that when you were coming into the course, I'm going to help you think about that. And all you have to do, there's no right or wrong answer. You just have to speculate and think, okay, well, let me imagine what kind of situations these might, these things I'm learning, these perspectives I'm gaining might advantage me in. And so that's going to have something to do with the first essay. That's the main objective of the first essay, is to do that. Now, there's many other, formatting instructions and stuff. Try to follow them all. But that's basically the first essay. It's all reflection. It's all you. There's no research. You cannot cite anything. You can't look anything up. Verboten. That's forbidden. I'm asking you to think, and I want you to write down what you are thinking. There is no reason to look at anything else. And by the way, if you do look at anything else, I'm going to know it right away. When you ask people, so what do you think about this course? And they go, religion has been an important factor in human civilizations for thousands of years. I'm like, nobody answers like that. You're copying something off the internet or something like that. Stupid. I'm asking you what you think. So all you have to do is think, and you tell me what you're thinking. Okay? That's going to be the content of both of the essays that you're going to write. We call those reflection papers. We'll talk about English Composition 1 and 2. Hopefully a lot of you have taken it, but we learn about different categories and so on. So that kind of an essay is a reflection paper. Now, because it's a reflection paper, it's different than, say, a research paper or comparison and contrast paper, anything where you have to be objective and kind of leave your own personal views out of it. But a reflection paper doesn't leave your personal views out of it. A reflection paper is all about your personal views. So you can use the personal pronoun. You can say, I used to think this and this affected me, and that's fine. It's a reflection, okay? Secondly, don't use like a research essay format, where you have to structure. Well, first you have the introduction, then you have the 3 points, and then you have the conclusion. Come on, I'm just asking you how you think. You don't put your thoughts into that kind of perspective, or if you do, you're not thinking about it when you do it. So, yes, just what you think, okay? No reason to freak out about that at all. It's sad, though, because some students don't seem to think that they can think, and they'll go and steal something from someone else just because, I don't know, I guess they're not confident that what they think is good enough, so they want what somebody else thinks. I don't know what causes someone to feel that badly about themselves in life, and I wish I could fix all that, but if you struggle with things like that, man, it's time to get over it, and I'll do what I can in the way I present things in this course that can be helpful in that regard, helping you to think more highly about yourself. I know a lot of people think that religion has a lot of bad effects, and yes, it does. For instance, Freud focused on this kind of a universal guilty neurosis, if you will, which is it a human trait that leads you to religion, or is it actually something that religion produces? Well, it's kind of chicken or the egg. I think Freud goes back and forth on whether or not it's a cause or an effect, but it's kind of just the way it is. And obviously that's a very unfair, conclusion about religion in general, but that is a lot of people's experience, where their experience of religion has exacerbated the guilt they might have come to the religion to help them deal with or help them be free of. And instead of helping them get free of it, the religion basically tells them, is like, yeah, you should feel guilty because, and it just exacerbates the whole problem. And I have lots of students that share with me that they've been through those kind of situations, whether in person or whether in the papers that they write or whatever. So anyway, I guess we can move on from this here. Let's go on. Well, first of all, it says at the end of the introduction, we're going to talk about how we're going to study religion academically. That's in the next video after this one, which is called the Academic Study of Religion. We'll talk about that. This is a critical thinking course. You're already getting that, I know, where you have to contemplate and wrestle with many challenging, deeper concepts that most students have never thought about before. I hope you heard that. I'm telling you the truth here, okay? You're going to have to think about and wrestle with things you've never thought about before, ever. If you don't like to think, drop the class. This class is all about thinking. But if you like to think about things and what they mean, you'll love this class. It might be one of your favorite classes of all time. I know there's different ways people feel about this. This will not be the easy A, no-brainer cakewalk course that some students think it's going to be. I'm sorry, but it's not. Now, that doesn't mean that it's grueling or anything like that. If you are interested in these topics of inquiry, areas of research or whatever, and you're able to like really commit yourself to the class, I think you're going to have a great time. I think you're going to have some good experiences. You're going to learn a lot of good things. But that doesn't mean the course is easy. It might seem like it's easy for you because if you're just into the concepts and you're like grabbing them and understanding them and stuff, you don't even really have to study as much, man. I mean, remember what a particular, concept is called or whatever, but you don't have to write down what it is. It's like you've experienced it. You know what it's like. And so that's what it takes to be successful. Understanding the concepts is the key to success. Memorizing questions and answers is not. We mentioned that before. I'm just reiterating because it's actually on the sheet here, okay? Gordon Rule English composition requirements. This is a Gordon Rule course. Gordon's a politician that many years ago was concerned about the fact that a lot of students were getting out of junior college or whatever and still couldn't read or write, And it's worse today because students are being graduated out of the high school system sometimes less prepared than they've ever been in history. And so we're seeing more and more of this. So Gordon Rule was trying to make sure that you had a certain number of classes where the student had to be graded according to their ability to produce essays, research projects, whatever, using the English language correctly, grammatically and in terms of word usage and punctuation and everything else. And so I have to grade, I have to have part of your grade be determined by your essay writing. It's 25%, as you will see. So not all that much, but you do have to write the essays to pass. If you don't write either one of them, I can't pass you. They're required, even though they're only 25% of the grade. If you have not taken freshman English composition 1 and 2, first off, let me just say my first advice would be you should take those 2 courses before taking this or any other Gordon Rule course, where part of your grade is determined by your ability to write essays correctly, using the English language correctly. For more people today than ever before, that's been a challenge. And so, if you in any way fit in that category of people, that's what my advice would be to you. However, a lot of you don't fit in that category. Many of you have English Comp 1 and 2, but some of you don't have it, and yet you're absolutely confident of your ability to produce a sophomore level essay. If you've done well in high school, and you're good with the English language, anybody that's planning to be an English teacher or, English composition or literature or something like that, you're probably fine. So if you're confident, that's great. Take the course. If you're not, if you don't have a good command of the English language, if you haven't written essays before, that you were strictly graded on, like you would be in an English composition course, then maybe take English Comp 1 and 2 before doing this class. Online requirements. Now, this stuff is important, so let's talk. So, obviously, you're going to have reliable internet access because this is an internet course, okay? You have to have basic computer skills and word processing skills because everything you're doing, viewing, creating, submitting, it's all done online. Okay, so you're going to have that. Word processing skills, that's writing essays, okay? If I tell you I want 1-inch margins and double spacing, you got to know in Microsoft Word exactly where you go to open up the correct formatting palette, whether it's the document or the paragraph or whatever, and put the settings in there where the entire document will conform to those formatting requirements. Now, if what I just said makes no sense to you whatsoever, then you probably do not have that familiarity with word processing programs like Microsoft Word, or there are some others involved. Microsoft Word is the main one. All right. A regularly accessible laptop or desktop computer with microphone and webcam. You have to have that. You can't take this course on your phone. Sure, you can watch the videos on your phone. Heck, you could even take the quizzes on your phone, not the exams, but that would be kind of dumb because the iPhone or the Android versions of the Canvas program are not that great. They freeze up during quizzes and stuff, so you wouldn't want to use it for that. But you can't use it for the exams. The exams must be taken on a computer. They must be taken using the Google Chrome browser, and they must, the Google Chrome browser must have the HonorLock extension downloaded and in the browser program. So what is this? Oh, and you also need an ID. You can read there. You have to hold it up in front of the camera, and you have to like take your laptop and show them the whole room and this kind of thing and set it down. And HonorLock just makes sure you're not going to like other websites while you're taking the test, or you're not looking away at other things. It's called proctoring. They proctor it. If you took a test in a class, it's proctored. Because the whole time that you're testing in the class, up in front of the class, the professor is sitting there and maybe he's working on other work, just looks up now and then, kind of like me, but it's being proctored. It's like you can't just do anything you want to do because you're being supervised. So this is kind of a remote way of proctoring you through this company, and Pasco Hernando State College pays, I'm sure, a large amount of money to have this functionality attached to the Canvas course, and it has been attached this coming semester for the very first time. So I hope there's not going to be any problems with it. But anyway, it's very simple to download the Google Chrome browser. You got a link. And then after that, you can download the HonorLock Chrome extension and install it in the Google browser, and you'll be fine. You don't have to go there for anything to start with. Everything is through the Canvas program on your computer. But when you go to the exam, in the Canvas, assignments area or whatever, and you click on the link or whatever, it's going to open up in that browser, and that extension is going to be installed, and it just basically makes sure that students aren't cheating. So be sure to read carefully the syllabus addendum. At the end of the syllabus is 10 pages. I'm sorry. The last 2 pages are an addendum that I had to add this semester. Everybody added to their syllabi because, like I said, we're putting this HonorLock Chrome extension that monitors students, proctors students is what we call it while they're testing. We're using it for the first time. So read that section there about that, and it talks about that. It also talks about academic dishonesty too, and we'll get to that. Important considerations. Now, we talked about this. The advantage of an online course is being able to customize your schedule. However, that requires a high level of self-discipline, and self-motivation. If you're not good at setting a schedule and sticking to it, if you're not self-disciplined like that, then I don't know. You're going to have to man up or woman up for this one. I'm going to change this. Yeah, okay, that's better. So yeah, it does require that. You need to make a schedule that works for you. And there's a section in the syllabus where it, talks about your learning style and making a schedule, and you can actually go to a PHSC page where it gives you some advice, and you'll see that going through the syllabus, which we're going to do next. So anyway, you have to make those changes in yourself if you need to. Now, here's how this works. Remember how I told you this is going to be like a face-to-face class, because my teaching ability is in orating. That's just what I do. So now I'm doing it online. So anyway, in a face-to-face class, you would have 2.5 hours per week. It might be once a week, 2.5 hours with like a 10-minute, 15-minute break in the between, or it might be twice a week, 75-minute, 1 hour and 15-minute classes if you're meeting twice a week. So that's 2.5 hours of teaching if it's a lecture course or whatever. So you're going to need to watch, on average, it won't be more than this, but on average, 2.5 hours of videos a week. So it's roughly the same kind of viewing time. Now, obviously, this is before the time that you set aside for reading, studying, and contemplating these deeper concepts and new perspectives and so on, which is very interesting and very important for you to do. And of course, taking quizzes. But that's just like any other class. You've got tons of other stuff that you do after those 2.5 hours in class. So you have to, set aside the time or allot the time, whatever, for the reading, studying, contemplating. How long that takes you depends on your personal learning style. There's something in the syllabus about that, again, where you can go to a PHSC website. Will help you decide your learning style, and as I mentioned before, can help you get a little bit more disciplined about a schedule or something, one would hope. What I do is, as you'll see, if you haven't taken an online course yet, if you have, you know what I'm talking about. There's modules, and you go through the modules one at a time. You have to do them in order. All of them have to be done in order, with the exception of one extra credit module at the end of it or whatever. I don't think you have to wait until you've done everything else to do that. But anyway, we'll see. I'm kind of setting these up as we go on the different modules. And so you'll see like the first, I think, 5 modules when you log on, or when you already have logged on. But you're going to see more. They're going to keep appearing throughout the semester and so on. So how long do you get for a module? That depends how much video you need to watch for that particular module. So we said 150 minutes a week is standard for a face-to-face class, right? So let's make a daily amount here, and that comes out to 21.42857 minutes a day. I mean, precisely that's how much it is per day if you divide it up. So, for example, here I gave you one. I picked one that was cool because it came out almost exact. The Hinduism 3 module includes 2 videos, and the 2 videos together are 128.5 minutes. So if you take that, okay, and you divide it by that minute per day, 21.42857, you come up with 5.996667 days. That means 6 days. So you get 6 days to do that module. If there's some of them where the total video time comes to the equivalent of say 1.7 days, well, obviously that's always rounded up to 2. You're always going to get, a full day. So in the case of Hinduism, it's exact, but in most of them, it's not. Most of them, you're going to get, a little bit of extra time. So that's how it's done. And that's, again, to finish the module, you have to download whatever documents as you follow along in the video, whatever you have to read in the book. And we'll talk more about that later. You don't have to beat the book to death. In my outlines, you'll see which topics I'm covering, and I'll tell you what page numbers they're on. So it's easy to concentrate on those parts in the book. But anyway, at the end of every module, there's a quiz that you take. Usually not very long, but as we get longer in the semester, they will get longer. Like by the time we're getting to Hinduism, now they're going to start getting even longer quizzes. But before then, they're going to average usually 5 to 15 questions per quiz, multiple choice, matching, something like that. Sometimes there'll be a few short response questions where you have to write 3 or 4 words or something. Okay, so that's how the timing, and that's why all the due dates, when you're looking at the calendar in the middle of syllabus, you'll notice the due dates are not spaced evenly apart. Sometimes they're Mondays, sometimes they're Thursdays, sometimes they're Wednesdays, but that's me calculating how many days for that module. And so that's what's determining the due dates. That's why they don't always appear on the same day. However, whatever day they appear on, the due date is always before midnight that day, so 11:59 p.m. And then whatever is new that you're going to be doing after that, that will appear as soon as you finish that module. And so that would be at 12 a.m. or something. If I've set it not to be available before a certain date, on the date it's available, it will become available at 12 a.m. That means, the night before the day, the first day. So midnight is where everything changes. Make sense? If you're late doing a module, there's a notice in every quiz that says, late submissions subject to a 10% debit. Let me tell you what, I don't usually do that at all. I have to put that there because sometimes I have to use it, and especially, if something is really, really, really late. But if you're a couple days late, most of the time, I'm not nitpicking. I'm not going to take 10% off your score. I don't have time for that stuff. So it's just put there as motivation. But if a student gets really, really far behind, they're probably going to end up dropping the course anyway. Which brings me to the next thing, and that is, if you get behind in a course like this, it can be difficult to catch up. Because remember, you can't cram this stuff. A lot of these are ideas you have to sit down, you have to think about and wrestle with, and there's no way to speed that up you know. I mean, you can speed up videos, but you can't speed up your brain in that sense. All right, we're going to go over the calendar next. Good. And the textbook. The cheapest way, if you want to do this is the book, by the way. Cheapest way is to rent, not buy, but rent an e-version on Amazon. This may not sound cheap, but believe me, it's way cheaper than every other option. $39.99. You get to rent it all the way to like the beginning of February or something. Obviously, you don't need it after the end of December, but that's just the price for renting it for like 6 months, or I guess that's how they calculate it. $39.99. That's the easiest way. And as soon as you buy it, you buy the Kindle version, and then you download it right away, and you've got it immediately. You don't have to wait for it to ship or anything. You know, you can search words and phrases in the book and stuff. So there's advantages to having an e-version, but in this case, it's cheaper. Now, you're not going to be able to keep it forever if you're just renting it. Sometime in February, you're not going to be able to access it anymore. That's all we've got here on the welcome letter. So let's go over to the syllabus here. Contacting me on the very top there. Okay, I'm available. It's funny, you know, because at the end of the semester, you know, students they do an evaluation, they have to answer certain questions, and sometimes a bunch of students say, "Oh, you know, was the instructor available, you know, for contact?" And they'll put like disagree, and it's like, I'm like, they never came to me. I can't come to each person individually via the internet and say, "Hey, I know you didn't call me or, you know, email me or anything, but do you have anything you want to tell me?" I can't do that with every student. If you want to talk to me, you have to come to me. And so I am available. And when you send me a message or an email, I try to respond as quickly as possible. If I don't, I'm asleep or in the middle of something or whatever, but I'm really good about that. And if you want to chat, if you want to have video conference, I'm open. We can do that. So, but you have to initiate it. You have to come to me and tell me that you want to talk to me or you have questions or something like that. You have to start it. So just making that really clear there. Obviously, there's no office meeting hours because this is an online course. But you can send me an email. You can send a message through Canvas. If there's like an absolute emergency or something, and by the way, this number's here because if there is an emergency, I want you to use it. It's my phone number there. You know, you don't want to use it for stuff that's not really important. But I mean, if you're trying to take a quiz or something and something's going wrong with the quiz, that's important. You know, send me a text to that number right there immediately. And then if I need to talk to you more, I can call you right back, or I can answer you by text, whatever works better, you know, based on what the situation is and where I am and all that good stuff. Okay. This course is designed to provide, and you can read all that yourself, because this first paragraph here, shh, don't tell anyone, that course description comes straight from PHSC. I have nothing to do with writing it. It's just standard. But the next section here where it says course objectives, learning outcomes, I did write that. And so these are things that are kind of important. Okay, so here's the objectives. You're going to be able to identify and compare the general tenets. That's a fancy word for, you know, the beliefs or the ethical injunctions, anything that has to do with the principles you live by. Those are the tenets of the religion and the worldviews of the major world religions. You know, what is reality? Is the world good? Is it evil? Are we good? Are we evil? Or, you know, you'll find out there's lots of questions like this. And including the various forms of Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, let me stop right here for just 1 second and say there's a lot more chapters in the book. I can't possibly lecture on every chapter in the book unless I just pick like a few, you know, superficial things or whatever. But to make any sense out of anything, you have to go a little bit in depth. So I'm doing the main 7 world religions today. If you're interested, for instance, in Jainism, I'll speak a little bit about it when we're going into Buddhism. But if you want to talk more about it, then let me know. You know, I'm not doing Sikhism, you know, which is later Indian religion, a syncretism between monotheistic Hinduism and Shia Islam, called Sikhism in like 14th century. That's taken off. I'm not covering that. When we do the Eastern religions, I'm not going to be covering, sorry about this, you know, Shinto, the indigenous religion of Japanese islands. I can't do everything. And so you'll see some chapters are left out. And if a chapter is left out that you're particularly interested in, like I said, I'm happy to dialogue with you about it. Or, you know, I do know more than what I teach in the class, so I might know some things related to what you're interested in that just haven't made their way into the curriculum. Okay, I'm available. But I am not going to test you on anything that I'm not lecturing on. You're not required to read it, but if you're interested, of course, you'll read the chapter. You'll never be tested on it, though, if it's not something that I'm lecturing on. All right, so moving on here. Explaining the historical backgrounds and cultural context in which each religion is developed and why. And understanding like this is important. In other words, you have to understand why it's important to understand. Yes, that is literally what it's saying. But there are two different levels of understanding there. There's the kind of understanding where you can look at a particular situation and you can understand it in an objective way. And then there's the kind of understanding of how important it is to have all of these different perspectives being weighed in when you're trying to figure out what's real or what decision to make, or, these are the kind of things that people that are wise draw on, and people that are wise get wise because they have all these multiple perspectives. Some people are very, very wise, and it's not because they have some astronomically high intelligence quotient or IQ. It's simply because they can see things that other people can't see, or that other people haven't, learned to see, don't want to see, whatever. Usually people are able to. They just don't see the benefit in it. Hopefully by the end of this class, everybody will be like saying, yes, I see the benefit in these things that we've talked about. And I think if you give yourself to the class, I think that you will. I think it will benefit you in major ways. Okay, so everything starts in a particular cultural context, historical context, social context, economic context, religious context. Nothing is born in a vacuum. Okay, so the way that religions are set up when they originate, the kind of belief structures that they put in place, the kind of social responsibilities that they determine for their members or whatever, all of these are based on situations that are really happening at the time. They're responding to these situations. They're not creating this in a vacuum. So when you understand the context in which things developed, then you understand a lot better why they developed the way they are and how much of the answers they have were specifically designed to work in that context. And now you have to compare the context we're in now, today, and say, how similar are these contexts? Because if they're very, very different, and basic society is much, much different than it was 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. We know this, right? So we have to figure out, how would this be applied today? Because it's all set in that particular context. It's all seen through the eyes of someone that this is their world. This is what's real to them. This is what society is. This is their, this is who they think they are, and this is their role in the world, and this is their responsibility to society. It's all seen through those eyes. So that's the understanding. The upper understanding is like, because of this, I have to know what it's like to be them before I can even think about how it applies to me over here. Make sense? So all of this stuff will be important to you personally, but when you're studying something for the first time, you can't bring yourself into it. You got to set yourself aside and, be the person in the story if you want to know what it's like to be the person in the story, right? So, chart the development, expansion, and diversification of each religion. This is like part 2 of the thing before. Because when a religion diversifies is a fancy word, separating into different sections, it diverges. That's because of some issue that is relevant to the time and the place and the social establishment, religious ideas, and everything else of the people that live there. You can call it the socio-historical context. It's kind of like a broad term that kind of everything. All religions deal with issues of ultimate concern. And there are some issues of ultimate concern that are the same for all people, but the way they're understood has a lot to do with the way society is structured. So as society changes, there are new questions of ultimate concern that come up that are unprecedented, and the founders of the religion and the sacred scriptures of the religion have not addressed these issues before. So then people have to figure out, for instance, if you're a Christian, well, what would Jesus do if he was here in the 1200s and he was looking at this, And people are not going to agree on that at all. And so you're going to have, the farther you go, the more you're going to see religions diverge and diversify. They come from the same root there because they've responded to very, very real contextual situations in different ways. They've interpreted sacred scripture in a brand new context in very different ways. Or they've had to make value judgments about which are the most important precepts. And, this person thinks this and this person thinks this. They're going to go in different ways. And once you understand the historical context, all of this makes perfect sense. Um, Identify features common to all religions and compare how they're manifested in each. We're going to do this in the third module. After the academic study of religion, the next module has all these videos on the features of religion. In fact, it might be more video watching than any other module all semester long, but I think you get like 6 days to do it or something. It's a long one. But anyway, we're going to talk about the features common to all religions, and we're doing that at the get-go. As soon as we talk about the academic study of religion, we start with what features are common for all religions. Why? Because we're comparing and contrasting all religions. And before you can look at the differences, and they're meaningful, you have to know what they have in common. If you look at the differences and you don't know what they have in common, then the differences just seem inexplicable. Maybe they're crazy, maybe they're demon possessed. I mean, you can't understand how anybody could be like this at all. And so if you want to meaningfully compare and contrast things, you have to at least validate that if millions or billions of people believe something, that they really do believe it, and somehow it must be working for them. And if you can't understand it and it seems insane to you, then the problem is with your perspective, probably not with billions of people. How convenient to say, well, I'm sane, but based on my sanity, I can judge that these billions of people are insane. We talked about this a little bit earlier. It's a kind of ignorance that leads to arrogance if you attach some idea that your view is the right way to see it. And so we want to get past this by seeing what's the same about all religions. And once we see what they all have in common, and we talked a little bit about this before, it'll be easier to look at the ways they answer some of the same questions differently, or different kinds of rituals, different kinds of understanding of who they are, their responsibility, their connection to the ultimate, and it gets interesting. But it's interesting comparing the differences because you understand what they all have in common. If you write a comparison and contrast essay, by the way, in English Composition 1, you're going to pick things to compare and contrast that have a lot in common. If they have nothing in common, it'll be a horrible paper. This is a paper about the differences between, McDonald's, Big Mac, and the moon. Terrible paper. They have almost nothing in common, If you wrote a paper about the difference between having a dog as a pet or a cat as a pet, that'd probably be a good paper. Because dogs and cats are very different, but people all have pets for kind of the same reason, and they're looking for some kind of companionship, or, maybe it's for the kids so they, whatever, so much in common. Then you look at what's different. So that's the way you compare religions. See what they have in common first. Next, we're going to be comparing the main beliefs, ultimate goals, and methods of attainment. First of all, when we're looking at the features common to all religions, they all do have main beliefs, ultimate goals, methods of attainment. In the next line there, they have selected sacred stories and writings. They have, of course, the authors, and their perspective is important, major characters in these stories, major teachings, major wisdom that comes out of them. They have major rites, rituals, festivals, holidays, all kind of in the same category there, religious observances. And of course, we want to look at how each of these things is significant in all religions, but then how it's uniquely significant in the various religions. Make sense? I just kind of finished that. 2 lines in one. All right. Golden rule writing requirements. We talked about this in the beginning of the video. Okay. So read this, but if you want to go back and listen to it, you can. Next, required textbook. We talked about that earlier in the video again. Method of assessment. Simple. Essays are 25%. Online quizzes, 25%. Online midterm, 25%. Online final, 25%. 25% of your grade is the average of the 2 essays you're going to write. Okay, you're going to write one over the first 2 weeks of the course, and you're going to write one the last couple weeks of the course. First one's 400 words, second one's 800 words. Read the essay assignment, and it will explain the exact format, 1-inch margins, 12-point standard type, double spacing, cover page with this information centered. All of the format is there. And then you have a section for content. And we talked about this earlier, kind of what I want you to think about. But read them, read the instructions, and that should answer all your questions about that. Online quizzes you take online right from Canvas. The online quizzes are at the end of every one of the modules. And the purpose of the online, with the exception of this module, you'll have some questions at the end of it too, just to see how much you were paying attention. But you won't be graded on that, really. But after this module, yes, this helps you to see what is lacking in your understanding of different concepts, so you can revisit those concepts and fix what's lacking so that you do well on the exams coming up. So the quizzes prepare you for the exams. That makes sense? When you're doing the quizzes, I don't care if you have your notes out or the book out or, whatever. Googling isn't going to do you much good most of the time because I arrange the questions in a way that it just doesn't. So, But the point is, if you have to do that, you're not learning it anyway. You need to understand it yourself. You don't need to be just trying to steal information wherever you can and put it down as if you thought about it. If you're not thinking about it, you're going to crash and burn on the midterm exam. It's going to be all over for you. Think about the concepts. Make sure you understand them. That's what the quizzes are there for. So even if you bomb a quiz, if that quiz causes you to go back to those different concepts that you didn't understand, and now you understand them more fully, that bombed quiz has turned into a jewel in your crown because now you're going to ace the exam that's coming up. Are you with me? So 25% is the average of the quizzes. Now, each of the exams is 25%. Now, the exams are different. You're still going to get them through the Canvas program, but when you do the exams, okay, you can't have your book out or your note out. And I mean, you have to spin your laptop or your monitor or something. You have to figure out some way to show them the room, show them your ID, and they're going to watch you while you take it. They're going to monitor your screen use, and they can tell if you open another browser, and that's to prevent cheating. So the exams will have the same kind of questions as you have on the quizzes, with multiple choice and matching answers and the same kind of stuff, and maybe a few short answers written. But they're different, okay? You can't use books and notes. You're going to be watched, and because the exam is the assessment of what you really know. The quizzes, it doesn't matter so much if you're using notes or whatever, because hopefully you're reminding yourself of the things that you've heard in the videos or whatever, and the idea is to cement those ideas into your brain. So use everything you can to figure out the answers to the questions on the quiz, but not just because you need to answer the question on the quiz, but because this is something you need to understand so you'll do well in the exams. Does that make sense? If you understand this and you use the quizzes right, they are such a valuable tool. Some people don't. They just look at something else that they need to get the best grade they can the quickest way they can. And if you just look at it that way and try to Google answers and stuff, it's not going to work well for you. And by the time you get to the midterm exam, you're probably going to crash and burn. And I'm only telling you this because I'm really honest and I want everybody to do well. And I don't want that to be anybody's scenario or story this semester. Unfortunately, almost always it's somebody's. But I do everything I can to just try to call attention to this and, what it takes to be successful and making it very clear. And I'll help you in any way I can. And I have students that took courses from me, a decade ago, 15 years ago, that sometimes they'll still send me a message or they'll make a comment on my Facebook page or something and just say, just talking with a friend today, just want to let you know that, that semester is still my favorite. And it doesn't have much to do with me. It has to do with the fact that these students, they're smart, ethical, inspired, imaginative, and tremendous drive for success, and a lot of them have gotten great jobs. Some of them are raising families. Some of them are in other countries. I don't know. A lot of them became doctors and stuff. So I can get some of my students to treat me for free when I get old and elderly and stuff, and can't make my copays. Way off the subject here. So again, I really, really hope that everybody will do well. I will do anything I can to help you do well. But the quizzes are a great study tool. Okay? They're great. That's what you use studying for the exams. Makeup policy, yeah, miss quizzes, miss midterm. Not only can they be made up, they must be made up because you can't go on until you've passed them. You have to do everything in order. You can't skip anything except one extra credit module at the very end of the semester. You can skip that if you don't want extra credit. If you already know that you've got a high A and you need to do it, believe it or not, some students will skip it. I wouldn't if it was me. Why? Because it's another something I can learn about. And that's what I've done with Confucianism and Taoism. They are a module at the end of the semester, and I really hope you'll all do it because I think those religions are important and they have something to teach. But, if you're confident, you have a high A, you don't want to, you don't have to. For those who have a lower grade, though, I've made it extra credit, where how you do on that, I don't care how you bombed all the quizzes before, this quiz is in a different category. It's you do well on this quiz, and a percentage of it will be added to your final score. So that's a final opportunity for students whose score is a little lower than, they wished it would be. So this is the website I told you to go to, Suggested Time Strategies. You see a link there, website on Learning Style Assessment. Do it. Important college dates, last day to drop, and get all your money back is the 28th, the end of this week. By 4, last day to drop, or they call it withdraw, without a grade. You would just have a W on your transcript instead of any kind of a grade. It shows that you withdrew from the class. The last date to do that is Thursday, November 5th by 7. Our schedule is on the next page. Now, if you look at the schedule here, date dues on the left. Like I said, the dates vary. Sometimes there's 2 days in between them. Sometimes there's like 6, 7 days in between them, And if there's holidays, that even adds to it, Like there's 2 classes that one class was supposed to be 4 days, but because we had the Thanksgiving holiday, which is 4 days, you end up having like an 8-day span of time. I've taken into consideration the holidays, the official ones that PHSC lets me recognize, which are the Veterans Day holiday, Thanksgiving holiday, Labor Day holiday, and I added something else too. I know a lot of you probably aren't voting yet, but some of you are, and I just added a day in there for Election Day. Okay, I don't know if it makes any difference, but please vote if you're able to. This would be a really, really good time not to just sit on the sidelines and just wait and see what happens. Yes, it's one of those kind of times in history, folks. So anyway, the days to do it is in the next column. The module, the name of the module is the next category, and I also have the exams stuck in there and the different holidays stuck in there, but that's the module. That's what it's named. Total video time in the module. It'll tell you how many videos and what they total, okay? The outlines that you are going to download or print out. I mean, if you like to hold something and you don't want it across your screen you're looking at, print it out, or you can have a double screen or whatever when you're watching the videos and you're looking at the outlines. So, and then the chapters in the textbook, like I said, everything is not assigned. What's going to happen is it's going to be a lot more important. The textbook is going to be a lot more important in the beginning. The religious responses, very important. I mean, that whole module is out of that book because it's a good one, a good chapter in that book, and it's going to be talking about a lot of concepts I've already introduced the 2 weeks before it. You'll start using this book at the very beginning of the 3rd week, so have it by the end of the 2nd week. So, because you have to read that chapter before the video there. And and then Hinduism and Buddhism will be important. I can't talk about everything in those chapters. That would be crazy. But I'm talking about major concepts I think will be meaningful and help you to understand. And in the outlines for Hinduism and Buddhism, I have page numbers where they're found in the book. Okay? And so on. If you have any questions about this, let me know. It has your essay assignments on there, final exam. But you can also look at the modules on the actual website, and they'll have more information than you see here. This is just a general outline. Cheating and plagiarism, I want you to know what cheating is, and I want you to know what plagiarism is. And this is the paragraph that was always here, but there's now a new section at the very end that talks about the honor lock system, but it also talks about what, in fact, academic dishonesty is, because that's what the honor lock is there to prevent, is academic dishonesty when you're taking the exams. But it does tell you more about examples of, for instance, what plagiarism is than it does in that small paragraph you're looking at now. So that's on like the last 2 pages. I would definitely check that out. Briefly, plagiarism is taking something that someone else wrote and presenting it as if it's yours. So at the very least, you're lying. But if you took it without them knowing it, you found an article online or something like that, and you took it, you're not just lying, you stole it from them, and now you're lying and saying that it's yours. That's plagiarism in a nutshell. Now, plagiarism is also related to individual parts of the paper, not just the whole paper. If you have a paragraph that's taken from somewhere else on the internet and it's not cited, that's plagiarism. Even if you paraphrase it a little bit differently, it's still plagiarism if you don't cite it. In this course, anything that resembles anything on the internet is plagiarism and you fail. Anything. Why? Because I told you don't quote anything. I said don't use any resources, don't use any sources. I want you to sit down and tell me what you think. There's no way you're going to write down what you think and somewhere on the internet someone has written those exact same words in that exact same way. Impossible. Make sense? Obviously, in terms of cheating now, the other form of academic dishonesty, on the quizzes, it's an honor system. And it'll tell you in the quiz instructions what cheating consists of: working with anyone else, receiving, giving any information to anyone else, uploading any information to the internet, or taking something down, from there. All of that's cheating, and it does explain that, okay? And the exams, again, you're going to be proctored. So, by the way, all of the quizzes and the exams have time limits. The exam has a much quicker time limit. Imagine this: you go to a class and your class is 75 minutes long, an hour, 15 minutes, and you have an exam that has 100 questions, okay? So you can see doing 100 questions in 75 minutes, sitting in a class, coloring in boxes. It's exactly how long you're going to have here, only instead of coloring boxes, you're going to be like clicking A, B, C, D, or whatever for each answer, which technically, well, it's certainly easier if you want to erase something and change it. You just click it again. You don't have to sit there with a white eraser and try to get all of the lead smudges off of your Scantron or whatever. So it's the same kind of thing, same time limit. Now the quizzes, you have longer. I usually give you like 2 minutes per multiple choice answer, so you don't have to stress so much. You can kind of look around, and the time accumulates too. If you go through 5 of them fast, then you got more time to think about the 6th one. But I have to have some kind of time limit on them, even though it's much more lenient. And the reason is, if I don't have a time limit, then students just use it as a look it up exercise. And if you use it as a look it up exercise just to find the answer that you can write down, you don't learn it the same way as if I'm forcing you to rack your brain and think about it. So that's why I have to use a time limit on the quizzes too. But it's much more lenient than the time limit on the exams. Okay, the exams are based on a class. If I had a 100-question exam in a class, you'd have the whole class, an hour and 15 minutes to do it. If I had an exam that had, say, 80 questions on it, I'd give you like an hour probably. So that's what you're going to run into in terms of the timing for the exams. And they're all going to be multiple choice matching. On the midterm, I think there's like 7 questions that require short answers at the end. But that is an extra credit section because you can actually get 110 points on the midterm exam, and you can get 110 points on the final exam because I have built 10 points extra credit into each one of them. On the midterm, that extra credit section is just like short answers. On the final, it's just selecting a multiple choice like anything else. End of the semester, I don't have as much time to go through and grade all those things myself. So, cheating and plagiarism, I mean, what it really does is it disrespects you as a person. Everything that you do, every choice you make, I mean, it is, when you're old, you can say, oh, it's a reflection of who I am. But when you're young, you're in the process of becoming who you're going to be. And every one of these choices and decisions, you're in that process. So if you choose to be a cheater, you're choosing to be a liar and a thief temporarily. And you think that, it won't stick to me. It'll just slide off, like when you throw crap on the wall or something. And okay, but it's kind of like smoking, I mean, maybe you smoke for 10 years and you're fine. Keep smoking 2 packs a day for 20 years and let's talk, What happens in this case is you become your choices. Whatever it is that you're willing to allow yourself to do, that's who you become. You say, well, I might steal a little bit, but I'm not a thief. I might cheat a little bit, but I'm not a cheater. Okay, how about this? I rape somebody every now and then, but I'm not a rapist. I murder somebody every now and then, but I'm not a murderer, See, this is called like relative ethics. You decide what is important and what is not. If I'm going 80 miles an hour on the freeway where the speed limit is 70, that's not that important because everybody does it. And I'll tell you one thing for sure. I'm not going to be laying on my bed when I get home at night going, oh, Jesus, please forgive me. I speeded today. It's a relative ethic. Okay, it's a guideline. Some people treat cheating and plagiarism like it's a relative ethic. It's not. It's not. It damages you as a person to choose to be the kind of person that would do that. And you might get to middle age before you see how much it's affected you. But hear me well. To get to middle age and look back on your life and not like the person you've become is a tragedy. It's the worst kind of tragedy. And I would not like to see you end up there. So the main reason not to cheat and not to plagiarize is because I don't want to damage myself. I don't want to become a person that I can't respect. I want to be the best version of me. The best version of me isn't lying and cheating and stealing. That's not the best version of Stephen Meggs. And it's not the best version of you either. So I hope you'll choose to be a better person than that. But the things that you choose to do, they really are a part of who you are becoming. And unfortunately, that's something a lot of 20-year-olds just don't understand. but I hope that you will think about my words, because I have no reason to be dishonest with you. I would like you to get to my age in my 60s and look back on your life, and maybe there are things you regret, but at least you look at the person you've become and you're okay with that. It's worth more than all the riches in the world to be comfortable in your own skin, my friends. Don't cheat, please. And by the way, I'll fail you for it. Why? Because this is a religious studies course where we're going to talk about like the highest ethics and the highest morals, the way people imagine the best version of themselves, the standards they put in front of them to try and attain those things. And after being confronted with all these very, very high ideals, if you can still just go straight back to lying and cheating and stealing like nothing happened, then you deserve to fail. Okay? Not because I wish you harm, but as a wake-up call. And hopefully you'll respond to it in the right way. I hate failing people. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Last semester, I had to fail 2 people for plagiarism. Breaks my heart. I mean, they could have just babbled some crazy stuff out of their head and, you know, they might not have gotten a great grade, but I would have passed them. I mean, if they were making any sense at all, I probably would have given them an A just because it was like, hey, it's the end of the semester. God bless you. But when you just take something off the internet and just paste it like I'm not going to notice, no choice. But I hate failing people. I hate it. If someone sticks out the course, sticks it out to the end of the course, and keeps trying and does their best, you know, amid whatever problems they have, there's no way I fail them at the end of the semester. There's just no way. If you make it all the way to the end and complete all the assignments, I'll find a way to pass you. Okay? Well, I think we're done with the syllabus here. Now, let's see here. Might be a couple other things to mention. You can read all the rest of this, but this is all from the attendance information all the way down. Is important stuff, but it's not stuff I created. Attendance policy is important, though. If you don't do anything this first week, you get dropped from the class roster. If at any time during this 15-week semester, a 2-week period, 14-day period goes by where you have not submitted any assignment of any kind, you get dropped from the course again. In past semesters, an instructor could reinstate you. Can't do it this semester. You want to be reinstated after you get dropped, you have to go and you have to file a special petition. And yes, I do have to approve it eventually, but you have to go through all the work of filing it. I can't just let you in, just communication between you and I. So it's harder. So those are the 2 ways that you can be dropped from the class. And that's the only attendance policy I have now. Since we don't have any kind of meeting times where everybody has to be there, don't need any attendance policy like that, right? Finally, you're going to be watching a lot of videos in this course, and they were not all recorded in the same semester. So sometimes from one video to the next, I might not even look the same, different hairstyle or something. But more importantly, if you hear any references, for instance, to the next time we meet in class, well, obviously we never meet in class. So that video must have been recorded during a semester where I was teaching a hybrid class where we met in class once a week. I don't think I left any references like that in any of them, but if you run across anything like that that just doesn't seem right, it's probably because it was recorded for a previous semester. And you can always contact me if you want to ask a question about that or anything else. Let me stress one more time, I am available, okay? I really do want you to do well, and I am willing to help you however I can. And I'm here if you need anything. Send me a message, send me an email, let me know. All right? Welcome to REL2300, and I will see you next time.